The last thing my brother ever said to me before he disappeared was, "Don't tell Mom I was here." That was a Thursday night in late October. By Friday morning, Marcus was gone. No note, no call, no trace. His apartment door was wide open, the TV still on, a half-eaten bowl of cereal sitting on the counter, like he'd just stepped outside to grab a mail and somehow never came back. 3 weeks passed. The police filed it as a voluntary disappearance. Marcus was 26, an adult, no signs of foul play. They said people vanish all the time. They said he probably needed space. They said a lot of things that meant nothing when I'd lie awake at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling, reading through our last text thread for the 100th time. Don't tell Mom I was here. What did that even mean? He had a key to my place. He came over all the time. Why would I need to keep that secret? Let me back up. My name is Janelle. Marcus is my younger brother by 3 years. We grew up in Columbus, Ohio. The two of us and our mom, Linda. Our dad left when Marcus was 4. So it was always just the three of us packed into a 2-bedroom rental on the east side, living paycheck to paycheck, making it work the way people do when they have no other choice. Marcus was the kind of kid who lit up every room he walked into, not in a loud, showy way. He wasn't the class clown or the star athlete. He was quiet about it. He'd just show up, say one thing, and suddenly everyone was smiling. He had this warmth that people were drawn to. Strangers on the bus would end up telling him their life stories. Waitresses would come back to his table 3 extra times. Dogs would abandon their owners to sit at his feet. Growing up, I was a protector. That's how it works when you're the older sibling, and there's no dad in the house. I walked him to school. I helped him with homework. I stayed up late when he had nightmares and told him the monsters weren't real, even when I was scared of things too. And then we grew up, and somewhere along the way the roles started to reverse. Marcus got strong not just physically, but in that quiet, steady way some people do. When I went through my divorce at 29, he was the one calling every morning just to say he was thinking about me. When I lost my job 6 months later, he showed up at my door with groceries and stayed for the weekend. He never made me feel like a burden. He just showed up. That's what made his disappearance so impossible to understand. The weeks before he went missing, I had noticed something was off. He'd stopped responding to texts as quickly as usual. He'd canceled our Sunday dinners twice in a row, once claiming he had a work thing, once saying he wasn't feeling well. I hadn't pushed it. I figured everyone was entitled to their quiet stretches. I figured he'd come back around. I was wrong about that. When he showed up at my apartment that Thursday night, I remember being relieved. It was about 9 p.m. I'd just gotten off the phone with our mom, who'd mentioned she hadn't heard from him in a while, and I'd brushed it off, told her he was probably just busy. Then my buzzer rang, and there he was on the intercom screen, looking tired in a way that went deeper than sleep. I let him in. I made tea. We sat at my kitchen table and talked for maybe 2 hours about nothing and everything, the way we used to. He asked me about work. He laughed at my impressions of my co-workers. He ate 3 of the granola bars I had out on the counter like he hadn't eaten all day. He seemed okay. Not perfectly okay, but okay enough. And then just after 11, he stood up, put on his jacket, and said, "I'm gonna head out. Don't tell Mom I was here." I laughed. Why? You know she doesn't track your every move. He just smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. Just for now. I'll explain later. He gave me a hug, a long one, the kind that lasts a second or two past what's normal. And then he was gone. I didn't think much of it until the next morning, when his co-worker Amanda called me asking if I'd heard from him because he'd missed a 7 a.m. shift without any notice. Marcus had never missed a shift in 3 years. Not once. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. I texted. Nothing. I drove to his apartment. Door unlocked. Lights on. Cereal on the counter. Gone. There's a specific kind of fear that comes with a person going missing, not the sharp spike of panic you feel in crisis, but something slower. A dread that seeps in through the cracks, that fills the space in your lungs where air is supposed to go. It doesn't hit you all at once. It builds. Every hour, every unanswered call, every dead, and adds another layer until the weight of it is all you can feel. I filed the missing persons report on the Friday afternoon. The officer at the desk, a tired-looking man, named Kowalski, who smelled like bad coffee, walked me through form with the energy of someone processing a parking ticket. Voluntary adult disappearance. He kept saying, happens more than you'd think. He'll probably turn up. He asked me if Marcus had any history of mental illness. I said no, or at least nothing diagnosed. He asked if we'd argued recently. I said no. He asked if there was a reason Marcus would want to disappear, and I sat there with my mouth open for a long second because the honest answer was, I didn't know, and that was the part that terrified me. I started retracing everything I could. I called his friends, the ones I knew about. Most of them hadn't heard from him in weeks. I called his ex-girlfriend, Tanya, who said they'd ended things cleanly back in August and hadn't really spoken since. I called his landlord, who confirmed Marcus was paid up to the end of November. I called his bank. They wouldn't give me information directly, but I begged, and eventually a sympathetic woman told me, off the record, that there had been no transaction since Thursday evening. Gas station, $34.17. A mile from his apartment. He'd filled his tank. He'd driven somewhere. That was the last trace. Mom was a wreck. She'd always worried about Marcus in the way mothers worry about the more tender-hearted kids, not because he was reckless, but because she knew better than anyone how deeply he felt things. She flew up from Florida, where she'd retired, and for 2 weeks the three of us, me, Mom, and Marcus's best friend Derek, drove the city looking for his car, posting flyers, calling shelters, showing his photo at bus stations and hospital yards, and every place we could think of. Nothing. I kept coming back to that last night, sitting across from him at my kitchen table. The granola bars, the long hug. Don't tell Mom I was here. Why had he come to me that night? Was he saying goodbye? The thought made me sick every time it surfaced, and I forced it down every time. Not Marcus, not him, but I started going through my memories more carefully, looking for things I'd missed. And there were things, small things that hadn't seemed significant at the time. About 2 months before he disappeared, Marcus had asked me a strange question out of nowhere. We were at a barbecue at Derek's place, standing by the grill, and he said, Janelle, if you found out something that could hurt someone you love, like really hurt them, would you tell them? I thought he was talking about a friend's relationship drama. I said something non-committal, like, depends on the situation. And he nodded slowly and let it drop. I thought about that question every day after he disappeared. 3 weeks in, the search had gone quiet. The police weren't actively pursuing anything new. The flyers had started to peel off lampposts in the rain. People who'd offered to help had slowly returned to their own lives, not out of cruelty, just out of necessity. Life doesn't pause for disappearances. Mom stayed with me. We'd sit in the evenings in my living room, not always talking, just existing in the same space. She'd taken holding his old Columbus blue jacket sweatshirt, the one he'd left at my place years ago, and I'd never gotten around to returning. She'd folded in her lap like a blanket. I'd stopped sleeping properly, started having dreams where I'd get a call from him, but no matter what I said, he couldn't hear me. Or I'd find him somewhere impossible, standing in a hallway that kept getting longer, no matter how fast I walked. Then, on a Tuesday night exactly 22 days after he disappeared, my phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. I need you to not panic when you read this. I'm okay. I can't explain everything right now, but I'm safe. Please don't tell Mom. I'll explain soon. M. I stared at my screen for so long that it went dark. Then I screamed. Not a scared scream, or not only that. More like a sound my body made because it had been holding 3 weeks of terror, and it didn't know what else to do with it. Mom came running from the guest room in her bathrobe. I showed her the phone without thinking, then immediately remembered. Don't tell Mom. But she was already reading, already crying. He's alive, she said over and over. He's alive, he's alive. And yes, he was alive. But I sat there with this cold, creeping feeling working its way through my relief. Because alive and okay were two different things. And I was already turning those words over in my mind. I can't explain everything right now. Please don't tell Mom. Don't tell Mom. Again, for the second time. What was he keeping from her? I tried calling the number back immediately. It rang 5 times and went to generic voicemail, no name, no greeting, just a beep. I left a message. I texted back. I called again. Nothing. I tried having the number traced through those online reverse lookup sites. Came back as a prepaid burner phone. Unregistered. Untraceable. Marcus had bought a burner phone. My brother, who once drove 45 minutes to return a library book that was 2 days overdue because he felt guilty, had gone off the grid using a prepaid phone. That told me something. Someone was watching his communications. Or he was afraid they were. Mom and I didn't sleep that night. We sat up arguing about whether to tell the police she wanted to immediately. I wanted to wait until I understood more. We compromised. We wait 24 hours and see if he contacted us again. He did. The next evening. Another text from the same number. I know you have questions. I promise I'll answer them. Right now, I just need you to trust me. I'm in a situation I got into by accident, and I'm working on getting out. I'm not hurt. I just need more time. By accident. He'd gotten into a situation by accident. I typed back. Marcus, I need to know you're really you. Tell me something only you would know. His reply came within seconds. You cried at the end of Toy Story 3. You made me promise never to tell anyone. I told Derek anyway. Sorry. I laughed out loud in spite of everything. It was him. I typed, Are you in danger? Tell me yes or no. His reply took 4 minutes. Long enough that my hands were shaking by the time it came. I don't think I am right now, but I need to stay gone a little longer. Over the next several days, we built up a fragile text correspondence. He couldn't talk on the phone, too risky. He could only text, and only from that burner, and only in short windows that seemed irregular and rushed. Slowly, message by message, the story came out. It started with his job. Marcus had been working for 3 years as a logistics coordinator at a regional distribution company, the kind of place that moves goods between warehouses and retailers, the sort of ordinary, invisible operation that keeps the economy running without anyone thinking about it. He was good at his job, promoted twice, trusted by his managers. About 8 months before he disappeared, he'd noticed something in the shipping manifest that didn't add up. Certain shipments were being rerouted through a secondary warehouse in Indiana that didn't appear in the company's official records. The quantities were off. The documentation was thin. And the sign-offs on those manifests bore the signature of a senior executive named Gerald Howell. Marcus was smart enough to know what he was probably looking at, and smart enough to know how dangerous it was. He didn't confront anyone. He didn't go to HR. He started quietly documenting screenshots, printouts, notes building a file. He had copies at his apartment, in a cloud drive, and this was a piece I had known in a sealed envelope he'd taped to the back of a framed photo he'd given me 2 years earlier, the one hanging in my hallway. He'd hidden evidence inside a gift to me without ever telling me. I went to the hallway and took the frame off the wall with shaking hands. Turned it over. There was a cream-colored envelope, taped with care. My name on the front in his handwriting. Underneath, only if something happens to me. I sat on the floor of my hallway for a long time. What Marcus had uncovered was significant. The documents in that envelope laid out a systematic scheme in which Howell had been diverting pharmaceutical shipments, dividing regulated medications before they reached their legitimate destinations, and funneling them into illegal distribution chains. The operation had been running for at least 2 years. The financial trail, which Marcus had painstakingly reconstructed from public company filings and internal records, suggested millions of dollars. Marcus had been building a case to take to federal authorities. But before he could, he'd made a mistake. He confided in a colleague. He trusted a man named Phil, whom he'd worked alongside for 2 years and thought of as a friend. Phil had gone straight to Howell. The week before his disappearance, Marcus had started noticing things. A car parked outside his apartment building. A new hire at work who asked too many questions. A feeling, persistent and cold, that he was being watched. He'd come to my apartment that Thursday night. He told me, because he needed to see me. He wanted to tell me everything, but he'd lost his nerve. He was terrified that if he told me, I'd be in danger too. Instead, he left the envelope, said the thing that was all he could bring himself to say, and disappeared. He'd been hiding in a cabin belonging to a college friend in rural Michigan. No internet, minimal phone use, surviving on what he'd stockpiled, and trying to figure out his next move. Why didn't you just go to the FBI? I asked him over text. I tried. I sent an anonymous tip 3 weeks ago. I don't know if they got it. I don't know if they believed it. I've been scared that if I surface too soon and Howell still has reach, it won't matter. Marcus, I typed, you have an envelope full of evidence, and I'm calling the FBI tomorrow morning whether you like it or not. A long pause. Okay, yeah, okay. The FBI field office in Columbus took my call the next morning. I explained everything Marcus, the disappearance, the envelope Howell, the pharmaceutical diversion scheme. I was half convinced they'd brush me off the way the local police had. They didn't. Within 48 hours, 2 agents came to my apartment. They sat at the same kitchen table where Marcus and I had drunk tea that Thursday night, and they went to the contents of the envelope with the kind of careful, unhurried focus that told me immediately this wasn't new to them. They'd been working a related case. Marcus's documents filled in pieces they'd been missing. Your brother did something very few people would have a nerve to do. One of the agents told me. Her name was Special Agent Rivera. She had dark eyes and a calm, precise way of speaking that I found steadying. He did it alone for a long time, without any guarantee it would matter. That takes a specific kind of courage. I thought about Marcus at my kitchen table. His tired eyes. 3 granola bars. The hug that lasted a second too long. When can he come home? I asked. The answer to that question took another 2 weeks. Federal investigations move at their own pace, indifferent to the emotional urgency of the people caught inside them. Marcus remained in Michigan, still communicating only through the burner, while agents worked to establish that his surfacing wouldn't put him at risk. Howell's network turned out to be substantial but not omnipotent, and with the FBI actively involved, Marcus's safety was a different calculation than it had been when he'd been alone. Mom held it together better than I expected. Once she understood the full picture that Marcus hadn't left us, hadn't fallen apart, hadn't made some reckless choice driven by pain, something in her settled. She was furious with him, in the specific way a mother gets furious when fear converts to anger now that the danger has passed. She was also fiercely, visibly proud. He could have trusted us, she said one evening, folding his sweatshirt in her lap. He was trying to protect us, I said. She was quiet for a moment. Both things can be true. He came home on a Friday exactly 6 weeks after he'd disappeared. I drove to Michigan to get him myself. I didn't tell him I was coming. I just texted the address of the cabin and, I'll be there by noon. Don't argue. He didn't argue. The cabin was small and cold, tucked into a tree line about a mile off a county road. His friend's truck was in the driveway. I pulled up, and Marcus was already standing on the porch in a gray hoodie and jeans, thinner than I remembered, holding a mug of something hot. He looked at my car for a moment, like he was making sure it was real. Then he walked down the steps, and we met in the middle of the gravel driveway, and I held on to him for a long time without saying anything. He felt the same. He smelled the same, that faint cedar soap he'd been using since college. He was shaking a little, or I was shaking, or we both were. I'm sorry, he said into my shoulder. I know, I said. I should have told you. Yes, I said. You really should have. He pulled back and looked at me. He was crying, which he would probably deny later. You would have tried to fix it. Obviously. You can't fix everything, Janelle. I fixed this one, I said. I called the FBI. He laughed, a real one, wide and surprised, and it was the best sound I'd heard in 6 weeks. The legal proceedings against Gerald Howell began the following spring. Marcus cooperated fully with federal investigators and was granted witness protection protocols while the case moved through the system. His documentation turned out to be more comprehensive than even the investigators had expected. He had a meticulous mind, my brother, the kind that noticed when things were a fraction off-center and couldn't rest until he understood why. He lost his job at the distribution company. Obviously, that was fine. He was offered a consulting role with a compliance firm 6 months later. The kind of work that put his talent for noticing discrepancies to use in a context where it didn't put him at risk. He took it. He's good at it. Here's what I think about. Even now, when I replay those 6 weeks, I think about how many moments there were when he could have told me, when he almost did. The barbecue question, if you found out something that could hurt someone, would you tell them, was not abstract. He was testing the idea out loud. He was looking for permission or maybe for reassurance, and I gave him a non-answer and moved on. I think about the last night, the granola bars. He was hungry because he'd been stressed for weeks and probably hadn't been eating properly. The tiredness wasn't just fatigue. It was a weight of carrying something alone that he should have been allowed to put down. I think about the hug, how long it lasted, how I noticed it was too long, and filed it away and let him walk out my door. And I think about the envelope taped to the back of the picture frame, his handwriting. Only if something happens to me. He had given me that frame 2 years earlier, Christmas morning, at Mom's kitchen table. I'd unwrapped it and said it was beautiful and hung it in my hallway the same day. It had been there ever since, and I had never once thought to look behind it. He put his trust in me without telling me he had. He counted on me to be there even when he hadn't given me all the information. That's either the most infuriating thing a younger brother has ever done or the most Marcus thing. Depending on the day, it's both. The photo is still in my hallway. Different frame now. I bought a new one after the FBI took the old envelope. It's a picture from the summer I turned 22, when Marcus was 19, and we drove to Lake Erie for a weekend because neither of us had money and we just needed to go somewhere. We're standing at the water's edge, squinting into the sun, laughing about something neither of us can remember anymore. He texted me a photo of himself last Sunday. He's growing a beard. It looks terrible. I told him so. He sent back 3 laughing emojis and a voice note of himself laughing at my reaction. He's okay. We're okay. And that's the thing about disappearances, the real ones, the quiet ones, the ones that don't make the national news or end in the worst way. Sometimes people go missing not because they're running away from you, but because they're trying to run towards something, a way out, a safer version of the story, a version where the people they love don't get hurt. Sometimes the silence is an absence. Sometimes a protection, wearing a disguise. And sometimes not always, but sometimes they come back. You know what stays with me about this story? Marcus didn't disappear because he stopped caring. He disappeared because he cared too much. He carried something heavy and dangerous alone, not because he was weak, but because he loved the people around him and didn't want them touched by it. And Janelle, she never stopped. Not for one day. That's what family looks like when it's real. Not perfect, not without fear, but present, always present. Sometimes the people we love go quiet not because they've left us, but because they're fighting something they don't know how to say out loud yet. If someone in your life has gone distant, gone silent, gone somewhere you can't reach, don't stop reaching. You never know what they're carrying behind that silence. If this story hit you the way it hit me, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Maybe someone who's been a little too quiet lately. Maybe someone who needs to be reminded that the people who love them aren't going anywhere. And if you're new here, welcome to Hidden Stories. Every week, I bring you real stories about the moments that change people forever. Stories that don't always make the news, but never leave the people who live them. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you have a story you think the world needs to hear, the link to submit is in the description. I'll see you in the next one.